But let's start the episode, eh? Everybody got their sillies out?
All right, let's fucking
Hoorah!
fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Masterful work. No notes.
God damn it!
I like it.
Getting me in my face coming into the episode, and no one's gonna know why.
Hello and welcome into another exciting, stimulating, have I used that one before? And downright matriculating. What is Is matriculating getting into college?
Boy.
Oh wait, I was thinking micturating.
What?
You're right. Yeah, I was thinking micturating, which is a nice way to say urinating. But no, you're right. That is getting into a college. That's fine.
Yeah, enrolling in a public university is, matriculating. No, I probably won't go with stimulating and matriculating. I was just trying to start on the spot because your face is like that. But
I just think you should keep we should keep rolling. I think this is a great intro.
This is a great intro. Anyway, my name is Clay, but before we get into the rest of the episode, let's meet the rest of our cast.
Hey everybody, my name is Mitch, otherwise known as the Blue Collar Black Metal on all the socials, or BB if you know me. I'm your friendly Northwest flannel-wearing, Subaru-driving, false metal advocate, and a true indie hipster.
And I, of course, am Cosmo, or Brian. You can call me either, I don't care. And I am the one who listens to way too much fucking music.
Cool. So, this week we're going to keep it light. We're going to do just a nice little bit of light work. And we're just going to highlight our favorite records from this last week because it was a bountiful week of releases. We're just going to do a quick highlight, 1, 2, or in Cosmo's case, somewhere between like 3 and 7, of the releases that we think that you should be listening to. I don't feel like starting, so I'm going to throw it over to Cosmo. We'll let him start. What's the first record that you think people should be listening to?
So the first thing that I think people should be listening to is going to be the new one by Keygen Church called Nel Nome del Codice. It is a side project of Master Boot Record, which is this really weird, ultra nerdy, computer-based shit. And Keygen Church is also really fucking nerdy, but they focus more on piano and organ. And this one actually feels the most organic out of all of their releases because they have actual human singers, like as sort of Gregorian chants. So it's kind of cool, creepy organ music. Y'all should definitely check it out.
I've checked out Keygen Church in the past, but I have not checked out this most recent one.
So, Master Boot Record to me was always kind of like more of like, basically like an electronica, like, interpretation of metal, right? Like utilizing purely electronic instruments as a way to perform metal songs. Like, is this similarly like a piano and acoustic instrument approach to creating metal songs? Or like, how does it like differentiate from Master Boot Record?
So it doesn't do much, actually. It sounds a lot like Master Boot Record, but with added organ and piano.
Gotcha. So it still has the electronic elements then.
Oh yeah,
yes.
big time. The first time that I heard Keygen Church without looking into it, I was like, oh, so Master Boot Record got popular and somebody else wants to get a slice of that cake. And then I would later just find out that it was just that guy again.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I have not spun that one. To be honest, I didn't know that had come out. I enjoyed the last Master Boot Record more than I thought I would. So I'm tentatively curious about how this one sounds.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like really creepy video game music. Next up is the debut album by Australian bestial black metal Neanderthals, Endless Loss, with Traversing the Mephitic Artery. This album is it came out today. I heard it today like twice in a row, and it just bashed my fucking head in. It's that style of war metal that's like really dumb, but still not too dumb. Very hard to describe that level of just cavemanism, but it has really, really solid guitar tones, really nice rumbling bass behind it, really good drum work too. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I was very annoying about it today too.
Yeah, I listened to it on your recommendation just before the show, and I will say I don't know that it was as dumb as you're making it sound. I feel like it was definitely had a lot more heft than a lot of Bestial Black or war metal bands tend to have, where a lot of those bands are kind of applying raw black metal technique to death metal riffs essentially, with very specific drum patterns. This was more kind of unhinged in the way that like Black Curse is, but not as restrained or refined as Black Curse. It definitely still is a lot more chaotic and more of an underground approach to it. I don't know. I thought it was cool. I think there was some cool ritualistic aspects of it as well. And I do see where you're getting the caveman thing from, just because again, the heft that comes along with it. But yeah, I don't know. It's a cool record. If you like stuff in that vein, Black and Death of that particular bestial kind of intense, unhinged variety, it's worth checking out. It's definitely not. It's more. I don't know. It is definitely war metal adjacent, particularly the drum patterns. Gave me a little bit of Antichrist Siege Machine vibes too, and part of that is it is also a two-piece, just a guitarist and a drummer. But yeah, Australian killer war black metal. Cosmo is correct on this one. Check it out. It is worth it.
And my final one this week is the sophomore release by uh, DSBM band Acathexis. Still the best DSBM band. Don't at me. Um, I loved their first one. It was my album of the year in 2019, even though it was a 2018 release. And this new one, I mean, it's everything I really wanted from it. It's probably not going to be my album of the year, but it's, I really enjoy it. It resonates with me a lot. And honestly, like, the vocals on it are probably some of the best vocals in the black metal sphere out there. Um, it's absolutely worth a spin.
You managed to break the rules with all of those releases in some way or another. Because, like, Keygen Church, not really metal. You talked about a record that came out today and not last week. And then in that last final section, you put a record from 2018 on your 2019 list. So, masterful work of, like, twisting the rules to Cosmo's agenda.
Yes.
But that Acathexis record was pretty darn neat. I did like that one. And I have a limited tolerance for DSBM, but the unhinged and like very frantic and frenetic vocal performance is a very like good transition away from despondent wailing that doesn't really add anything more than texture a lot of the time. This is an actual like real life performance, so it's calling it even DSBM is a little misleading in my opinion, but it is a very good black metal record.
Sick. I need to check that one out because DSBM is a hard genre. I think it's definitely not one that I reach for. But if it's done well, I think that there is a lot of interesting ideas that are on display there. So yeah, I'll check the Acathexis. Acathexis. Cool. Great.
But
It has Deha, Mari Cognitum, and Danny T in it.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a super group. You guys didn't let me have a chance to talk about Endless Loss. I only managed to listen to like 2 tracks before the show started because didn't have a chance to listen to it before Cosmo like wrecked it, and I told him that I wasn't going to listen to it, but then I broke down and did. I'm also getting Profane Order vibes in that vein of bestial black metal that's war metal-y, but not to the same level where it is dumb, where the riffs are kind of dummy. Like, it's got enough heft that, how do I put this into words? Heft that has purpose. So, I haven't finished that record, but that's one that I'm looking forward to giving a spin because it didn't come out last week, Cosmo.
Yeah, I think kind of to that end, just the last thing that I'll say about that, I think that kind of what we're all getting at that is a common sin created by war metal, because it is a genre that relies upon chaos to kind of create the atmosphere that it is going for, is sometimes that is used as an excuse to not come up with discernible song ideas, where bands are kind of just like, well, if we make it sound as evil and chaotic as possible with as much like weird like snare ride blast beats as we can, like it's going to be as cult as possible, and so no one's going to give a shit. And I think where a band like this really sets itself apart is by writing discernible songs with ideas in them that move and shift and are interesting to listen to, while still maintaining that edge and that ferocity. So if that sounds cool to you, you should check it out. But sorry for interrupting, Clay. What were the things that you listened to this week that you enjoyed? And were they from this week?
They were from this past week, this most recent week that has just passed. My first one is one that I have heard before this past week, though, so man, look at me, breaking the rules. It just came out, and I'm going to recommend Aberration. But I have heard Aberration previous of its release due to the fact that I share some band members with that band. But regardless of that, I had nothing to do with this record, and so I'm able to appreciate it as a slab of artwork by itself, completely detached from it. And they showed it to me after it was all done, and it is crushing. When they say light-devouring, abyssal, blackened death metal, they're not lying in the slightest. Those fucking fools did it. They managed to create light-devouring, abyssal death metal. So, if light-devouring, abyssal death metal is up your alley, go give it a spin. It'll kick your teeth in, and then it'll laugh at you afterwards.
Concur fully.
Wow, strong words. But I mean, yeah, what else is there to say? Like, it is a band that is very much worth your time. I'm kind of bummed because the day that it came out, I managed to forget my headphones at work, which tends to be Friday is kind of a light scheduling day for me. So it's perfect that it is release day because I spend a lot of time listening to releases. And so I had to listen to that album on my backup headphones, which are very treble heavy, and it did not do that album any favors. And it kind of took away a lot of the heft and interesting ideas, and they just got kind of lost in the mass, and it didn't make a big impact on me. And I didn't revisit it until today. And I'm very sad that I didn't because I'm going to be spending a lot of time with this record. It's extremely good. And it's almost hard to get more into it than that because it's just kind of a record you need to experience. I don't know. It's great. If you like a lot of the stuff we recommend on this show, this is in that same vein.
Hell Sounds, baby.
What'd you call
Hell Sounds.
It is Hell Sounds, but yeah, specifically light devouring
abyssal death metal. That's what they call. That's what they call themselves. So
nice.
They didn't lie when they called themselves that.
No, not at all. And interestingly enough, the band that it made me think of while listening to it, even though that band I think calls themselves more of a black metal band, would be Abyssal. In terms of actually achieving this true sound of the howling void beneath you. They are they're playing in a similar space, even if their approach is different. And it's cool as shit. So listen to it.
Aberration is much heftier, meaner, and more muscular than Abyssal, I think, ever really has been. But Abyssal, great band. Now, chugging along, I'd like to also recommend that you go listen to a band, a little-known band, I don't know that anybody's ever heard of them, called Hamferd. That's my best pronunciation, and I'm not going to say it again. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce the album title. I'm just going to put the album title over here so you can read it yourself. It's in a language that I don't speak. And it is, I guess, the best of my ability, describe it as a doom record, but that sells it extremely short for what it truly manages to pull off, because at times there's big post-metal passages where just crushing guitar parts, and then there's even blast and blackened melodies that come in where I wouldn't really call it a blackened doom record at all, but plenty of times, they bring in some cool tremolo melody lines and then blast underneath it, and then all of a sudden they go into a post-metal bit and then beautiful singing on top of it, which is a pretty rare recommendation for me because almost everything that I've recommended the rest of this time has been some sort of crippling hell sound. This one is also a very sad, dour, and emotionally heavy record, so it still fits the theme, but in sort of a more wistful and beautiful way. Hamferd, did you guys listen to it?
Yes, and I have thoughts. So, the previous album, Thompson's Lake Hum, is a 10 out of 10 all-timer for me. Love that album. It's gotten me through a bunch of bullshit back when it came out. And while I did love, parts of Men Guds Hunderstart, I don't know if I could say that I don't know if I could say I love it the same amount as Clay does as a whole, specifically because, I think the closer is my biggest point of contention. It is an entirely spoken word track. I mean, it is from the perspective of one of the survivors of the instant the album is named after.
It's not from the perspective. It literally is that guy.
Yeah. It is the guy. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's the album is based off of the Sandvik whaling incident, which was
A
a tragedy
tragedy.
that
There you
happened.
go.
Yeah, it was a tragedy, and um, the album title is actually taken from a quote by one of the survivors who gave the interview in the first place. But I don't know. I generally don't like spoken word tracks that much. It's grown on me here and there as I've revisited it. The album itself, I think, lacks a little bit of heft from their previous releases, but again, I think it's just a grower. I still really enjoy it, just not as much as I could.
I disagree with you as much as I possibly could because I remember listening to that 2018 record in 2018 and being like, yeah, it's cool. I'm revisiting it over the years, but it never really managed to stick for me. And this new one hit like a ton of bricks, and it has continued to hit like a ton of bricks. And every decision, every creative meter and movement that they include is the right decision at the right time, which is one of the most important aspects for Doom for me, is that when you're going to take these long, droning, drawn-out passages, you have to sprinkle them with enough creative juice to have them move along at a pace that is engaging and then also know when to move to the next piece entirely. And they almost masterfully navigated those choppy waters on this release. That's all I want to say.
We do love a good point of contention here on the show every now and again.
Yeah, now watch Beeps take the middle ground and not have a strong opinion.
Yeah, I really wanted to like this record, and because people have such strong opinions on it, I think it is a record I will keep revisiting. I have no particular attachment to their first record that Cosmo was talking about, or at least their previous most recent record. I'm not sure how far back their lineage goes, musically speaking. And it's not even for a lack of, I think there are times that records bounce off of you because like what they're doing is not something that appeals to you. Mournful, clean vocal doom is a like style that really resonates for me. One of my all-time favorite metal records and a personal 10 out of 10 is Warning, Watching from a Distance. So I have no problem with mournful, clean vocals in my doom and like that sort of approach and style of doom, even though they don't sound anything alike, but just mostly to bring it up as like kind of a counterpoint album. This one really didn't click for me. That being said, I haven't been in the biggest metal mood this last week, like a giant poser that I am. And so it could just be that it wasn't hitting me at the right time. I didn't dislike it. I listened to the whole thing, and I remember thinking, it was pretty good. But I didn't have a particularly strong reaction in either direction about it. So I'm interested to revisit it later. I think that it could continue on that trajectory, or I could come back in a month and be like, guys, I fucked up. This record rules, because I have definitely done that before, and I am not ashamed to admit when I am wrong. I love when I'm wrong, because usually if I am wrong, it is always in a positive direction and not in a negative direction. So I am looking forward to increasing my enthusiasm about this record as the year goes on, should it hit better later on.
Now, Beebs, what did you find from this past week that really tickled your fancy?
Well, my record from the week was crippling alcoholism, Love from a Padded Room. I'm so glad that you asked. No. No, but I did have to bring it up as a joke because everyone who knows me knows that is the only thing I have been talking about recently. It is my current album of the year contender, but it did not come out last week or even the week before that. So I'm not going to cheat 2 weeks in a row. Bring a record that kind of came out of nowhere for me, as some really rad records tend to do, and that was the record by Brodequin, and the name of that album is Harbinger of Woe. Brodequin is a brutal death metal band with a capital B from Knoxville, Tennessee, and they're one of the OGs. I did not really know a lot about them. BDM is actually a genre that I would say that I have not really gotten that deep into until the last couple of years. It was definitely a harder sell for me than like more old school forms of death metal. But yeah, they've been doing the thing since about 98. They dropped a few records that Metal Archive says were very well received up through the early mid 2000s, and then kind of disappeared for a long time. and then came screaming back with a EP in 2021, and then dropped this full length in 2024. And honestly, this is, as I already said, capital B BDM. This is immediately out the gate. I think a common sin for brutal death metal bands is they will start off with a sample or a long instrumental passage before opening the album. They do not do that. The album almost feels like it starts before you press play because of how fast the first blast comes in and how heavy the first riff is. There is no pretext. There is no explanation. There is just intensity and brutality right out the gate, and it's pretty cool. I think that they make a lot of interesting choices throughout it, but at the same time, I think that one of the things that sets them apart from a lot of more recent, more interesting brutal death metal bands is that they didn't feel the need to spice it up, and I mean that in a positive way. I think that there is a lot of BDM that kind of is like afraid of just being a BDM band, and moving away from the brutality or trying to incorporate other things, either by getting more glossy or incorporating weird outside influences, and sometimes it's successful, sometimes not. See my opinions on Nithing for an example of how successful it can be. This band is very comfortable being like, yeah, we're a brutal death metal band and we play brutal death metal and it is going to be sick as hell. And then they do that for almost exactly 30 minutes, which is the correct length of time for a brutal death metal record to last. So, I don't know that it will top my end of the year list in any way, shape, or form. But I have spun it quite a few times, and I do know that it is going to remain on my list of gymmable albums to play because, man, it just does not. It starts, it hits you in the head, and then it just does not stop or slow down while remaining interesting to listen to and well produced. It is neither slickly modern, nor is it lacking in heft. It hits a nice middle ground that makes it very listenable for a band in this style. That was my favorite record of this last week, and I think I was a lot more enthused about it than the rest of y'all. Thoughts on Harbinger of Woe?
Yes, so I liked it. It was cool, and I'll probably come back to it a few times, but it didn't really hit me as much as it hit other people that are in our little sphere, which is fine. I think it's fun. I think it does BDM well. It's not ashamed to be like, hey, we're a BDM band. We're just a BDM band. Fuck you. And that's basically all they do.
I'm going to say that I listened to a lot of sad doom music this week. So the antithesis to that is what Brodequin was putting on offer. So I liked the Brodequin album, and I'm going to say that it has sort of shades of Devourment due to the fact that it is sort of that old man muscle being sort of flexed on a brutal record, where I don't know that I like it as much as Obscene Majesty, but I do get the same sort of vibe of a band that's been around for a long time that just sort of comes back and they're just like, this is what we do, fucking check it out. They just flex and you're just like, damn, that is a band that knows what they're doing and they do it well. So I did listen to the record twice and I did like it both times, but I wasn't like so floored that I had to like keep getting back to it, so I just kept hoveling up away to my sad little doom hole.
It's funny. I was kind of reticent to make the comparison to Obscene Majesty that I was thinking of beforehand. So I'm glad that you brought it into the equation because the reason why I didn't want to bring it up is it doesn't sound anything like Obscene Majesty. Mm-hmm. Like they are like fundamentally different records. But I think you're right. That idea of like, hey kids, check this shit out. Like, mm-hmm. And then just immediately like showing up everybody else who came to the show. Is kind of the vibe on here. Yes. A little bit. I think that Obscene Majesty maybe does it with a little bit more artistic intensity, just in terms of the way, like nothing else sounds like that record, and nothing else I think could sound like that record and still sound good. Brodequin has a lot more clear approach to their riffing. It is just as heavy, but the guitars are definitely a lot more discernible.
But I always am hesitant to, bring the names of the greats into the conversation when we're talking about stuff, but I think it does, at least in vibe and attitude of the record, sort of get in sync there.
Yeah, definitely. But so if you really like, if you like brutal death metal at all, I would consider this the first essential BDM record that came out this year.
Yes.
All right, so we're all in agreement. That's a 3 thumbs. You should listen to it.
Yeah. And I think we brought a lot of good shit. Honestly, it was a great week for releases. There was a lot of cool stuff to listen to this week, even if I was being a little bit of a negative Nancy about listening to metal in general.
Quite varied,
I think
too.
there was a lot of quality. Yeah, lots of variation. We don't only talk about hell sounds, just most of the time.
We got some top tier depressive suicidal stuff. We got some top tier electronic stuff. We got some top tier doom stuff. We got some top tier. We do have top tier hell sounds. Very important to keep those in there. And top tier brutal death metal. So a good varied week. Just about every listener should be able to find something that's worthwhile here. And now to try and keep this episode nice and clean and tidy and tight, Cosmo, you want to bring us home?
Of course. Well, that has been another riveting, exciting, and dare I say, matriculating episode of the 10 Ton Talk Show. Stay heavy, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
I'm going to have to start writing my intros down. Whee!